Welcome to my channel where I talk about the unique beliefs, lifestyle, and practice of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, in today's episode, I'm going to talk about ministering, the ministering program that we have in our church to help serve individuals and help everyone have like a friend within their ward, within their church congregation. Now, I'm going to first read a description of what ministering is and then answer some Q&As, but my intention is really just to help those who are interested to understand what ministering is within our church. The word ministering in other churches are going to mean whatever it means for their churches. For instance, a minister might be like a pastor in another Christian denomination. But in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the way we use the word minister or ministering is just somebody who is reaching out to other people in their ward, which is like their congregation, to provide one-on-one friendshipping and fellowshipping and watch care. And most members of the church, if they're, active and, generally participating in the religion, are going to be assigned as a minister to several members of the congregation that they can help watch over. All right, so I'm going to give you some of my own individual spin and take on my own experiences and answer some questions in just a moment. But first, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, and I will read and discuss a description of what ministering is so that you can have a good foundation for what we're really talking about. I'm taking this description of ministering from the website of the churchofjesuschrist.org called What is Ministering? And so I'll just read it with some commentary and then go ahead and answer a few questions. Again, this is for the benefit of those who just don't know. Maybe they're new to the church, maybe they're just unfamiliar or investigating or coming back and would like to understand what this program is. And as one more reminder before I jump into the actual content, this is part of my ongoing series called What It's Like, where I share what it's actually like to be a member of my church. And I try to give my own inside scoop, because once you join this church, it is it's a pretty demanding religion. It requires a lot of us, and it's a big learning curve if you're new to it or just getting involved. So hopefully this can be helpful. All right, so this is the description of what is ministering. Ministering is learning of and attending to others' needs. It is doing the Lord's work. When we minister, we represent Jesus Christ and act as agents to watch over, lift, and strengthen those around us. So I'm just going to comment on that. Ministering in general, you do not have to have a special calling or be assigned to a specific person to minister. There is basically two different ways the word ministering is used in the church, and that is your specific calling or the specific people you've been asked to watch over. You are a minister assigned to these people. But then there's the broader umbrella term of ministering, where really, as disciples of Christ, we are to be aware of and minister to anyone that comes in our path that we can do something for. And we want to, start our day with a prayer and with awareness that God, show me who I can minister to. Show me who today I can lighten their load or bring joy to them. So I'm just going to point out that there's two different ways you might, think of ministering, but I'm speaking kind of more specifically to the program where you have specific people that you minister to. But again, they're both valid. They're both part of ministering. Okay, moving on. As members, we may determine through communication and inspiration the frequency and type of contact we will have with those to whom we minister. This customized contact will help us minister effectively and counsel quarterly with leaders regarding the needs of the individual and families in our care. So this is jumping ahead a little bit, assuming you even know, what ministering is. But again, as members of the church, you're going to typically receive an assignment of 2, 3, maybe 4, who knows, maybe 5, maybe 1, but a small grouping of other individuals in your congregation, which we call wards, that you watch over specifically. And again, more on that in a minute. But it's saying here that we can determine through asking them directly what they need, or inspiration as well. Gosh, I feel the Spirit urging me to maybe do this or check on this or provide that. So it's both communicating with the person to ask them what they need and also trying to listen to the Holy Spirit to see how we can help other people. All right, the next section is what can I do? The ways in which we love and minister to one another are limitless. Every child of God is unique, therefore effective ministering must be highly individualized and led by the Spirit. What works for one may not work for another. All right, so we'll just pause there for a second. Back in, I don't remember when ministering became a program, like 2021-ish. Not a huge deal for me. In the last few years, it's what we now have, the ministering program, but it used to be called home teaching and visiting teaching, where women would go visit with other women and men would go visit with the family unit as a whole to check in and see what the needs are and, just be present and provide a friend within the congregation, within the ward. And a lot of these visits over the period of the course of this program started becoming a little bit formulaic. It was the monthly visit. You check it off your list. You say, start with leave them a word of prayer, give them a little message. And I think that I loved the program. I thought it was lovely and benefited a great deal from it. But the church leaders felt that we needed to up our game and be more individualized and put more care and inspiration into how we were watching over other members of the congregation. Because if it gets checkboxy of see, I visited them for the month, I'm done, check, then, are you really getting to know them? Are you really seeing their hearts? Are you really doing what they really need? And so this ministering program emphasizes that it's highly individualized, that there are multiple different ways to reach out to somebody, and what works for one person is not going to work for another. So we're not trying to just formalize it anymore, where it's you just show up once a month and check it off the list and you're good. The idea here is to be able to make an individualized visit to other members of your ward to actually work with the Spirit to see what they need. So the visits could be less often or more often or whatever, or they could take different forms. And again, we'll get to that in a little bit. Leaders have encouraged church members to begin ministering with prayer, keep it simple, and learn what works best for those they are called to serve. Ministering today no longer requires a formal visit. Interaction can take place at home, church, or any other setting that's safe and convenient. So for me, I actually don't start with prayer when I do a ministering visit, because I'm going to admit, this is kind of embarrassing. This is the first time I read that it's supposed to start with prayer. I actually hadn't read this description ever until today. When we did visiting teaching back in the day, we'd always start it with prayer. But now I just show up and have a nice visit and go home. So maybe I'll incorporate that, maybe I'll not, I won't. But the thing that I like here is it says that it can be more flexible. You don't have to have a formal sit down visit home teaching used to be. You actually sit down in their home. It can take place in any environment that feels comfortable. But I will tell you, when ministering first started being a thing a few years ago, I didn't know what to do. So I just didn't do it for a couple of years, probably, except for a teensy tiny, drop a little gift on their porch and ring the doorbell and leave. And I wasn't sure what to do, because if you're not required to do an actual sit down visit, well, what do you do? So I just really didn't do anything. But for me, I have really come back around to, especially since COVID, everyone's become so disconnected from one another. And I have felt and the ladies I've visited have agreed, that just a nice actual sit down visit in their home is what they want. So my ministering visits right now they're not monthly. They're more like every other month, because we're just so busy. But I actually do sit down in their home and just have a visit. One of my sisters, however, for whatever reason, doesn't matter to me, haven't drilled down on it, but she'd rather not have it in her home. She'd rather have it in mine. So when we schedule, she comes over and sits down on my couch and we have a lovely visit. So even though it's not required to go sit down in their home, that is what has ended up working out for my sisters that I visit. But there was a woman I was assigned to in the past. There was a couple women I was assigned to visit in the past that I checked in with them, and what they said is what they really wanted was no visit, and they really meant it. They did not want to visit. One just said, I'm so busy. I have such a full life with family. I really do not want or need any additional contact with anyone. I'm overwhelmed in life. And the other lady said, I am not really that interested in the church anymore. I'm off doing my own thing. And I find it kind of annoying, to have that contact. But I have to say that I had to make it safe for them to feel like they could say that, because unless someone knows that it's safe to talk freely, they're just not going to answer, or they're not going to say anything at all. So when I reached out to these two women that didn't want the visit, I tried to normalize it and make it comfortable. I said, hey, I would love to come visit and get to know you. And by the way, I did this by text, but I don't know where you're at, if you're interested in a visit, if you'd like to have me over or not. And then I think this is what helped them feel comfortable. I said, if you're not really, interested in the visit, I'm okay with that too. I'd love to get to know you, but like whatever works for you, whatever's going to be helpful for you, I want to know, and I'm totally open to hearing your feedback on what would work for you. And then that's when I got the feedback from these other two women that they really didn't want to visit. And I said, thank you so much for letting me know. I really appreciate that. And I will 100%, respect that. And you just let me know if that changes. And just from my own work as being a therapist, getting to hear a lot of people's inside stories, my experience is when you push past people's boundaries, it's really offensive and hurtful, that people don't really want their boundaries pushed. And I think that there have been times in our church where someone has thought that it's the most Christ-like thing to push a boundary, to say, well, I'll just keep showing up regardless of whether they want me or not. But it's the therapist in me and getting to hear people's stories that I have a very different approach. I think you need to have an honest conversation. If someone doesn't want to visit, but you got to make it safe for them to say if they don't want the visit. Like, hey, it's okay either way. I'm here for you. I'd love to have that relationship. But if you're not in a place where you want to visit, I can hear that and I can totally respect that. That making it safe, you're going to get more likely to get like an accurate answer. But I actually sat with a client one time a couple of years ago. She had stepped away from the church and she kept getting visits from the bishopric and the Relief Society president and ministers. And she kept saying, I don't want any more visits, but they didn't listen because they thought they were being Christ-like by continuing to visit, which I get. I totally get that. You don't want to be negligent. You don't want to just walk past someone, ignore them, forget them. But, again, the therapist in me says if they've made their will known, it's really wise to just say, hey, I get that. Please let me know if things change. I care about you. I also respect you. And so I'm going to, take your feedback and run with that. So again, just kind of giving you an idea of what ministering looks like when it says you are to individualize that. And to me, that looks like even if they say, please, no visit for me, that you totally respect that. And if they're still on your list of someone to minister to, and even if they're not, but obviously if they are, the very least you can do, and you should be doing this for everybody. I'm speaking shoulds as one who is inside the program of ministering, is pray for that person. So one thing that I do frequently is pray for my sisters, regardless of wherever they are on their willingness or interest in having a relationship. One of the challenges, if you're not actually in their home getting to know them, you don't always know what to pray for, but you can say, God, you know what they need. Please watch over them and help them. And so just thought I'd share a few stories of how it can be very, very individualized, and that you need to listen to the feedback of your sisters. And part of the power of the program is getting feedback along with that inspiration. Because again, I'm very, very well aware that inspiration is a thing, but sometimes we think we're inspired when really it's just our own anxiety that's driving the boat. And so we need to get their feedback, because if we're so anxious to, do all the Christian things that we push past boundaries, maybe that's not inspiration, maybe it's anxiety, So it's just, we have to get information from the people that we're working with to see what actually is going to help them. Okay, so going on with this article, it says Sister Jean B. Bingham, who's one of the ladies, one of the women leaders in the church, says, sometimes we think we have to do something grand or heroic to count as serving our neighbors. Yet simple acts of service can have profound effects on others as well as ourselves. And I like that, because there can be sometimes a little bit of, at least in the past, there's been, some cultural pressure that you need to always give a gift at the holidays for ministering, or come up with something special for their birthday. There's less pressure now that it's ministering, because it's a little more easygoing of you can just do this the way you feel you need to do it. There's less scripted, cultural expectations, which I like. But I really appreciate Even if there's less expectations around ministering, I really like that it's just simple acts of service can count. For me, occasionally I'm willing, interested, or able to put together some little gift. But for me, that's like an every other year or once a year at Christmas, some little small tiny thing or something. I'm just not a craft queen. I'm not a baking queen. I'm not a super like cutesy type person. And so I honestly just show up and visit and leave. I don't show up with like anything crazy like gifts, a gift basket. I just show up and say, hi, how you doing? And we sit down and start talking, and that's it. I feel like the power of ministering is in that relationship, becoming aware of that person and their needs and showing them love. All right, continuing on with this article. In our ministering efforts, we take advantage of the many tools at our disposal. Elder Todd D. Christofferson said, we have many means of contacting people to look after their welfare and help them on this path of returning to their Father in heaven. What works? What's needed? So we can email, we can text, we can, if we're on a messaging platform, we can message them, we can stop and talk to them at church, and we can see them in their home, we can talk to them in the streets, we can do whatever we need to do. We don't have to do it just one way. But the whole point is just to be aware of this person and to help them in any way that you logically can. So the end of the article says, as we commit to being flexible and prayerful, and then prayerfully consider how to best love and serve others, we'll be blessed with inspiration and knowledge we need to minister as the Savior did. Okay, so that's the end of that article. And I like that how it says, we need to be prayerful and thoughtful about how to minister. Because like I said earlier, when ministering very first started, I did not really even do it. Hardly at all for a couple of years, with minor exceptions. And that was because I just honestly didn't know what to do. I'm not sure where to start. I don't know these people. I don't know if they want to talk to me. I don't have time to sit on their couch and visit. If I sit on their couch and visit, is that going to feel like I'm just trying to do the old program of visiting teaching? I just had so many questions. I almost kind of blocked it out and didn't do it. But I did continue to pray for God to help me feel able to do ministering and show me the way so that I could fulfill my responsibility and reach out and make relationships with other women. And gradually, I have been able to kind of get into a good rhythm that works for me. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of Q&A of questions that people might have around ministering, now that you hopefully know a little bit about the program. But first, I will just let's go back, hit the refresh button and say, why ministering? What's the point? What are we doing here? Part of what the point is so that everyone in church has at least some individual contact with another member of the church. We can't take it for granted that just because someone is a member of the church or even shows up to church, that they feel cared for, nurtured, and seen. It is absolutely possible that someone could maybe just not even go to church and nobody notices, no one says anything, and you feel like so lost and so uncared for. It's very possible for someone to show up to church and they're maybe quiet, maybe sit at the back, maybe don't have a lot of friends, and they can go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of going to church and no one said hi, and it's not because anyone on any side of the equation is it bad or wrong or evil. It's just people are busy, people are distracted, they're unaware, and we don't want individuals who are precious to the Lord to feel invisible or like they don't have a friend. We want everyone to have a friend. Now, we have the numbers in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to fill up many mega churches. Those mega churches where there's thousands of people coming to one huge building. We could do that if we wanted to, but why? Why do we have wards that are small? We call it a ward. It's a congregation called the ward. I've probably said that a million times, but it's just, all these names are kind of tricky if you're outside of the culture. But okay, so we have a ward that's just a few hundred people. Usually it's, 350, 400. I'm not entirely, a few hundred people. And then a subset of those are at church on Sunday because people who aren't active or out of town, whatever. So you have a pretty small, intimate group of people. And once you break it down into the subgroups of the young women, the young men, the children, the ladies, the men, you've got these little subgroups that are fairly intimate, a good size handful of folks that can mingle with each other, but not overwhelming but also not so tiny that it's kind of pointless, so you've got a nice size that can mingle with each other. But even so, you're going to have people slip through the cracks where they just don't feel seen and heard. So the ministering program is really, it's the coolest thing. It's where the rubber meets the road, where we get to watch out for everyone in our ward. And at its best, everyone is actually getting out and doing those ministering visits, so everyone is having that contact. But as I understand it, that overall the church is struggling to get people to do their ministering ever since the switch from the home teaching and visiting teaching program. So full disclosure, this is not something that everyone is fully engaging in. We're all kind of struggling, and I'm just telling you how I see it. Okay, so I think I've already talked about what is ministering and how it's different from the old home teaching and visiting teaching program. All right, here's another question. Who is assigned to minister to whom? And I briefly covered that in that women are assigned to minister to women. Men are assigned to watch over an entire household. So for me, there are two, and you're in companionships. So there's two women who are assigned to visit me, and I'm assigned with another woman to visit several women. And of course, in the men ministering companionships, they watch over a family. But I'm just going to talk about the women's side because that's what I do. So my companion currently is not an active member of the church. She's not really interested. She lives part-time out of the ward and part-time in the ward. She's not really willing or interested in participating. That's fine. Actually makes it easier for me because I don't have to coordinate with her. And the other ladies that I visit, they're all totally willing to have a sit-down visit, every few weeks, like maybe every 6, 7, 8 weeks. And so that is what I'm doing right now, is just texting them and going and sitting down and having a nice visit. And I'll talk a little bit more about what those visits look like in a minute. So, all right, what is the ultimate purpose of ministering? What is the why? Going back a little bit to what I said a few minutes ago, it's so everyone has watch care, someone who is kind of keeping track of them. We don't want anyone to feel lost. So it's an opportunity for friendships to form and for spiritual things to be talked about. A lot of us might have friends at the office or from the gym or whatever, and they're lovely people and we love and respect them, but not being in our religion, maybe we're not able to talk about some of the spiritual things we want to. So the ministering relationship is a place where we can say, hey, we both know that we are, we're both into this religion, so we can talk about maybe our life struggles from this framework. And I think that's a beautiful opportunity. Another purpose of ministering is to watch over each other's actual temporal, worldly challenges. Like one of the ladies that I minister, she's really she's talked a lot to me about some struggles with her son, who has been in and out of therapy, and he's had some behaviors that have caused a lot of trouble at school. And, as a therapist, it's kind of nice because I'm able to be I'm not doing therapy on anyone, but I'm like, hey, you might want to have him ask about this with his therapist, or you might want to word something this way if you're talking to the school teacher. And she's like, oh my gosh, thank you. So we're not just talking about spiritual things the whole time. She shows me her remodel projects. And I think that's exciting. It gives me ideas like, oh, wow, how much did you pay for those cabinets? Where did you get it from? That's been something I've really enjoyed about ministering and home and visiting teaching as I've done that over the years. It's just great networking, learning about what other people, it could be a restaurant they like, right? Or a scripture that's on our minds. It can be all kinds of things, but just that neighborhoodly support. I have gained so much from that in my experience doing ministering, and then back in the day, the visiting teaching. But okay, back to this idea that it's not just about the spiritual things, it's also about temporal things. So another one of my ladies, she that I visit with, she's experienced a death in the family last year that was very, very distressing. And so because I was her ministering sister, it was kind of up to me to keep track of, does she have the money that she needs for a certain thing, or does she need meals brought in for a certain thing, or how's she doing emotionally? Does she need some support from the ward? So she was willing to answer those questions because she knew I was assigned as her minister. So I was kind of the touch point from the ward. And that was a privilege to be able to do that. So as a ministering sister, I'll get relied on. If one of my ladies is going through something particular, it's my job to be aware and to let other people in the ward, like the leadership, know, hey, we really probably should check in or help here or whatever. So really good eyes and ears on what people might be going through. And of course, you always proceed with caution and awareness and consent and engagement and all of that. You don't just like break into their house and start folding their laundry like it's a relationship where there's mutual respect, right? But it's an awesome opportunity to watch over the needs of the people that we work with. Okay, so another question, what does successful ministering look like to me? I would say, in a nutshell, it's that the sister that I visit feels seen, that she is involved in the decisions about how and when and if we meet, so that when she is engaging with me in a visit, she actually wants to be there. Like, to me, that feels successful. I don't think anyone should feel forced into an interaction, or that it's just a checklist for somebody, or that it's somebody's heaven points that they're trying to earn. It needs to feel like a real human, like we both want to be here and we both agree to this interaction. And then from there, having it be real relationship where you're listening and exchanging about life, so that you can get to know, like, boots on the ground, how is life really for you? And as a ministering sister, I feel like my job is to listen more than to speak. So I'm totally okay if I just say, how's this going? How's that going? And what next? And it feels like the ladies I visit are kind of aware that the dynamic is that I'm there for them. So they're totally willing to listen to me, but mostly they're more, I would say, aware that I'm there for them. And I like it that way. I feel like that's how it ought to be, because I don't want to show up and just like dump my drama on them, right? Like, I want to be able to be there for them, because that's part of why I'm their minister, is to watch over and help them, but not in some like power way of like, I'm superior, I'm here to like do any, I don't know, like watch over you from some superior angle. No, it's like we're equals, but I'm also here trying to invest my watch care and my love in your life in any way that I can. So I feel like that is successful ministering. And for me too, I do feel like it needs to work for me. So if and that's where I like this flexibility, because if it was like, oh, to do it right, you have to be there every single month giving them a gift or something, I'd be like, I'm tapping out. Like, I'm going to have to do it not the right way, because I can't do that. So I like how there's this sensitivity around it needs to be individualized. It's not only what the other person wants, it's what you are capable of doing. I had a lady that I was assigned to like a few years ago, and the only way she was really mostly willing to do visits was to go out for ice cream. And I'm not really that interested. I don't eat sugar, and I don't want to drive for half an hour. I don't live that close to an ice cream place. So we ended up kind of meeting in the middle and going on walks occasionally. But she's like, she made it clear at the beginning, I just love going out for ice cream. I'd love to do that every time if we just always went out for ice cream. And I just sat with that and I thought, I'm not really willing to do that though. Like, she can say that's what she wants, and I hear that, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm sure there's more than one way we can do this. So we worked out, again, we both like walks. So we both, decided we'll just meet on walks. And she didn't probably get as much as she wanted from me, because I think she really wanted a super close buddy that could giggle over ice cream. And that's not me. I love to talk and I love to touch base, but I'm not going to be your ice cream buddy. So yeah, I feel like it has to work for both people, but both people have to have a little bit of flexibility and common sense. I would say common sense is awesome. All right, so the next question, how often should ministers contact individuals and families that they minister to? It's really individual to see what's going to work. That's what I love again about ministering, is that it is individual. So the old program of visiting teaching, it was a monthly visit, and I still have that kind of templated in my mind. And also just I feel like if you go, if it's every other month, you start getting a little loose with not knowing what's going on in their lives. So I feel like every other month is a minimum. But I feel like monthly is sometimes a lot, because monthly comes around real often. That's why for me, 6-ish, 7, hopefully more like 6 weeks is good, because I don't feel like it should be so often that it's intrusive or not sustainable. And I don't think it should be so loose that it's like, wow, it's been 4 or 5 months. I've gotten divorced, changed a job, and had a baby, and my minister doesn't know about any of it, right? Like, you don't want that. You want to have like some awareness of what's going on in their life. So, okay, here's another, getting near the end, just a couple more questions. What are ministers not expected to do? Well, they don't have to do things that they can't do. Like, you're not supposed to pay their bills for them. You're not supposed to be their on-call babysitter or therapist. Now, if you want to babysit and you want to offer, go for it. But you don't have to do things you can't do sustainably in your own life. I have a client of mine who said there was a lady that she ministered to that would always call demanding meals and babysitting. And I had to work with this client to say, you don't have to do that. Just because you're a minister does not mean that you are under her thumb to do whatever she wants, whenever you want. Like, you can say, hey, my schedule is such, I really am not in a place where I can babysit. Let's talk about maybe if I could talk you through some options. Or I am totally fine to bring a meal, like if I have some notice, if you've had a surgery, but I'm not really on call for meals all the time. So I've never had a circumstance like that, but people like that do exist. And this person was being demanded on a lot, and you're not under their thumb. You can be service oriented and help them, but it needs to work. Like I said earlier, it needs to work for both of you. Okay. What if I don't feel like I connect with my assigned ministering sister? That's my second to last question. And my last one is, does ministering only happen during difficult times, or is it an ongoing relationship? Well, I'll answer that one now. I think that's pretty obvious. It's an ongoing relationship. But there are times where some people don't really want a whole lot of contact, or they're so busy or overwhelmed that you're just not going to have much of a relationship with them unless something big happens. But usually if there's a birth of a child or a funeral or someone dying of cancer or they're moving, something big, then most people, unless they really don't want contact with the church, most people are going to be like, yes, please, we would love a meal, or I'm willing to answer a couple questions about how my child in the car accident was doing, So if they're really not open, sometimes they will be when there's a tragedy, because they actually need support. They need someone to help come sit with the child or provide some help in some way. So again, it's individual. All right. And that other question that I read a second ago, we'll end on this. What if I don't feel like I connect with my assigned ministering brother or sister? I'm trying to think of a good way to answer that. That has happened to me before. I feel like that kind of self-selects to fix itself over time. There was a lady I was assigned to a few years ago that not trying to be rude, but she's very cold. Never really smiled, didn't want to return phone calls or emails. And the couple times I saw her, she was very crisp and short. And I thought, well, you can't force anyone to like you or to want to visit. So I just kind of didn't worry too much about it. I let it go, and I let my Relief Society president know that she's not that interested. She's not that friendly. I don't know if she needs somebody else or if she just doesn't really want visits and she doesn't really want to talk to me about it. So I let the Relief Society president handle it. But I would say in most cases, you would just let the Relief Society president know, who's the one who makes the assignments, that, yeah, I'm struggling. I don't feel like they like me, or I feel really awkward and uncomfortable. If it's a minor issue, then you use it as an opportunity for growth. Like, can you be more charitable? Can you be more patient? Can you grow into this? Maybe it's a you thing and there's something you can learn. If it's a pretty big, very distressing kind of situation, then you tell the Relief Society president, say, I'm not comfortable. Can you please reassign me? And they will. All right. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about what it's like to do ministering. If you're new to the church, I'm sure this is all kind of a lot of information that's helpful to you. If you're just trying to figure out what we are like as a culture, maybe this is interesting, but I hope you have found it useful in some way. I think it's a really good program. I haven't always done it. There's been times I've refused to take a calling as a minister because I have been too overwhelmed. There's been times I've done it very faithfully. And right now, I would say I'm on a pretty good rhythm of doing it. I do find that it blesses my life. I always benefit from those relationships in all kinds of ways that I build with the women. And I know that Jesus Christ wants us to minister to the one, to watch over those around us and actually care for them. That is where the gospel actually rubber meets the road. It's not just a theory. It's not just a prayer in your closet. It's not just memorizing hymns, memorizing scriptures and singing hymns. It's actually doing good to God's children and being there for them. So it's an opportunity of real discipleship, and I'm grateful for that. All right, I hope this has been useful, and I will see you next time for another What It's Like video. If you want to watch more of my What It's Like videos, be sure to see my playlist with that title. See you next time.